The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. We're glad that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to be with us. And also, Dr. McCarty, we're glad that you're here. We're going to talk about time management as it relates to stress today. And I understand that really stress is your specialty. As we were talking, you let me know that you're a fellow of the Institute of Stress, and you also were the opening speaker for the 11th Congress on Stress in Hawaii, I think in the year 2000. And so we're just glad that you're bringing your rich experience to us today. Tell me, how is it that we relate to stress? What's a model we can use to help us understand it?
Well, I have a seminar I do, Don, and we talk about the stress tank. I got this model out of Australia. The stress tank, basically you think of your life as a tank, and stresses are being poured into this tank every day of our lives. And if the tank fills up to the overflow point, various kinds of harm can happen. You can be physical illness and mental problems, accident proneness, etc. Fortunately, there's a pressure relief valve on the stress tank, and the pressure relief valve can prevent our stress tanks from rising to the overflow point. And there's ways, and there's 7 keys to keeping that relief valve open. There's also ways we can close the pressure relief valve, thinking we're helping things. Smoking, alcohol that gives short-term relief can actually close the pressure relief tank. And then there's things we can do to create a larger stress tank. In our seminar, we unpack all those things, and there are 7 keys to managing stress. Those 7 keys.
Prayer, relaxation, exercise, those are the keys?
Those are the keys. And time management is one of those keys. And to have the pressure relief valve fully open, you keep all those 7 keys active in your life.
They all look very important, but how important would you say, if you're looking just at the component of time management, how important is that?
Well, I have a stress pyramid that I've developed, and the stress pyramid puts the 7 keys in a hierarchical order.
Okay.
And the bottom 4 on that stress pyramid, they go from the least important to the most important at the top.
Okay, so exercise, healthy eating, that's foundational, relaxation. And then management, organization, that's probably where you have time management, is that
correct? That's where time management and organization, that's where time management comes in. Those are foundational elements, and time management is quite important for stress management.
It's at the bottom of that pyramid, or pretty near it. What is the goal of time management, would you say?
Goal of time management is to be able to have the things in our lives, Don, that we feel are the most important, and to be able to accomplish those. We all have things we think are very important in our lives, but there are so many areas of our lives that are pulling at us we can get into that time management helps us to focus on the most important things and be able to accomplish them.
Okay, talking about that, what then would be the first step in time management?
That's determine your goals.
Determine your goals. Talk to me about that a little bit. How do you do that? How do you determine your goals? I mean, I have so many things I want to accomplish that sometimes, this is going to be helpful to me. I'm sure it's going to be helpful to those listening.
Well, it simply means writing down your goals. And to define a goal is something that you want to achieve. It's important to you. That's desirable for you, and it should be desirable. It should be reachable, something that really you can accomplish, and it should be measurable, so you can know when you've reached it. You know when the balls got into the hoop, so to speak.
Okay.
And the goals can be. When people think of time management, they often think, "Oh, you're talking about just the workplace here." No, we're talking about personal goals, family goals, occupational goals. It's life enriching dreams that you want to accomplish.
And those change probably from time to time.
They change from time to time. Yes, they do. You accomplish goals, and others come up to the top.
So looking a little more closely at that and defining that, what are some of the practical steps we could take in setting those goals, defining them?
Well, I've been impressed by 3 steps that Alan Latkin, in an excellent book called How to Gain Control of Your Time and Your Life, has suggested. And I went through these in 1990. The first step is simply list goals you'd like to accomplish during your lifetime. You just take a piece of paper and you only allow yourself like 5 minutes to do this. List all the things you'd like to accomplish in your lifetime. And you just have this long list of things.
All right.
Then you put it aside for a while. And number 2 is you take another sheet of paper and you list all the things you'd like to accomplish in the next 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do only allow yourself just maybe 5 minutes maximum for that. Put it aside. And then your last one is, if you knew you were going to die in the next 6 months, what would you for sure want to not leave undone?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, very powerful question. And you write all the things down you don't want to leave undone if you're going to die in the next 6 months. Then you have these 3 lists now. You put them aside for a day or so, and then you come back to them later. And once you kind of ascertain that those are the things really that, yes, that's what I'd like to accomplish in my lifetime. That's what I'd like to accomplish in the next 3 to 5 years. That's what I want to be sure not leave undone in the next 6 months. Then you've got at least a set of goals you can start working with. And I don't suggest, Don, that you do this out of your own head. You do it prayerfully. Spiritual people think, well, time management, it's not spiritual enough, but it is. You make it a prayerful experience. And once you get those lists, you say, God, is this really the list that would honor you? Mm-hmm. These things being accomplished in my life, is this what you want me to do? And you get kind of a sense of satisfaction. Yes,
that's where I need to go. That's where I'm headed. So like David said, I want a temple to be built for the Lord. He got it all together. He didn't execute it per se, but Solomon did, and he had planned it. It came as a result of what God had put in his mind.
And the thing is, Don, that came out of his experience with God. All the wonderful things he accomplished in his life, but the dream that he had was to build that temple. That became his number one goal. Mm-hmm. Toward the end of his life, it became his passion, was to be able to get all those materials together for the building of that temple. And that came out of his experience with God. Our top priority goals really do grow out of our relationships, and especially for spiritual people, their relationship with God.
So out of your devotional experience, really, this can happen.
It can. It can.
After you've set these goals, then what do you do next?
Number 2 on the list, Don, is to then prioritize the goals. Prioritize them. You have all these goals, and what you have to do is you take the goals on your personal list, and you just start writing down. If you could only accomplish one of them, let's say I have 20 things on my personal list of lifetime goals or whatever, and I can only accomplish one of those. What would I want to be sure and have accomplished? And then I go, and then if God said, okay, I'll let you accomplish 2 of them, what would the second one be? And again, you make this a prayerful experience, and you work right on down to number 20. And then you do the same thing with family goals, with occupational goals, and you do the same thing for your lifetime goals, your 3 to 5 year goals, and your next 6 months.
And have you done this?
Yes, I have.
And do you have in a book with you at all times?
I carry a sheet of priorities around with me, my top priorities.
I got to tell you, I've known you now for quite a few years, and I know this is true because ever since I met you, I can remember. I think it was a big gray book when I first met you. You had it there, and you made this presentation, not exactly like this. You've thought about it a lot since then, but you made that presentation to me, and I got to tell you as well that for me, for the last 10 years now almost, because of that, I've had a calendar that has 5 years in it, and it really has given really a great peace to me. I think it is a stress reliever in a sense because I know where I'm going to be. Of course, God can preempt anything. Family situations can preempt anything, but it really does. I'll just add my testimony to it.
In the aftermath of the World Trade Towers incident, one of the firemen that lost his life, I think it was the chaplain of the firemen that lost his life when he was administering last rites to one of the other firemen there. He used to make the statement that if you want to make God laugh, tell him what you're going to do tomorrow.
That's a good statement.
And I think there's something to that. And at the end of this whole goal-setting process, the goal, then we submit all our plans to God to be carried out or given up as His providence will indicate. It doesn't mean the goal-setting process isn't important. I find it vitally important. It has been so important to me over my life. And I was giving a family life a presentation on time management to a group from around the country who had come in for a family life seminar. And I was doing one of the workshops there. And several years later, I was doing my stress management seminar in San Diego, and a lady came up to me in that seminar and she said, you know, I was in that 2 or 3 years ago when you did that time management seminar, I was in that, and ever since then, it's changed my life.
Yeah.
So I know these are very powerful principles. So you determine your priorities.
Now, I remember once we were at a retreat together. You may not remember this, but this was many years ago. And at that particular retreat, someone shared with me the importance of prayer in this whole process. And then you have as well. You have a special prayer that you say. But I mean, one of the prayers that I say every day is, you know, what's coming between me and you, Lord? What's coming between me and someone else? What do you want me to do about that? What do you want to replace that with? And what do you want me to do right now? It helps me set those priorities for that day. But you have a special prayer as well that you share.
That's worked very well for me. And that prayer is simply this: Lord, crowd the bad out of my life with the good. Mm-hmm. And then crowd the good out of my life with the best.
That's a great prayer.
It has been so powerful in my personal walk with God and in my professional life and in my family life as well. Because what happens is, Don, God gives you more and more important and top priorities, and they become passions to you. Mm-hmm. Now, to set a top, how do you determine a top priority? Well, again, it's a matter of saying, if you could only accomplish one thing on your list, what would you want it to be? And then if you could accomplish the second, what would you want it to be? And so forth, right on down the list. That's how you determine your top priorities.
We want to talk a little bit more about those top priorities when we come back. We want to talk about how it is that you can accomplish, or once you prioritize these goals, what do you do? And we want to talk more specifically about that. I hope that you can join us when we come back.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Diehl and Dr. Eileen Ludington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Diehl and Dr. Ludington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge, so call or write today.
Welcome back. We've been talking with Dr. Skip McCarty. We've been talking about time management as it relates to stress. We talked about how we needed to have goals and we needed to set priorities. Anything else you'd like to say about that?
Well, Don, sometimes we have, like at my work right now, I work with Pastor Dwight Nelson at the Pioneer Memorial Church. I'm one of the associate pastors there, and I have 20 different ministries I'm responsible for. Well, I know I can't give equal time to all those 20 ministries, so I sat down and I prioritized them from 1 to 20 in terms of what I thought I could contribute and in terms of the ministry of the church, and give the most value to the ministry of the church with my time there. And then when I got those done, I sat down with Pastor Dwight Nelson and I showed him this list of 20. And I said, Pastor Dwight, these 4 or 5 at the top is about all I can really invest my time in to make the biggest difference. And I think this is it. What do you think? He looked at it and he tended to agree with me. Maybe there was a little shuffling around of those 4 or 5, and then I know when I go out of there, because I have not only my own list of priorities, but with my employer as well, and then I know I have the freedom then to invest my time, my major time for the church in those areas.
So you don't feel like you're Harry Smatter a little bit for every matter. You're focused in. You know exactly what to do.
I can't say that I never feel that way, but at least I know what's most important, and I've been empowered by his choice as well as my own to go for that.
So once you've prioritized some goals, what's the next step? What do you do?
Okay, the next step, Don, and this is very important, and we'll go through several steps here quite quickly, is to then list activities that will enable you to accomplish those goals.
Okay.
we're going to go through several slides here quite quickly now because I want to put up some goals, just some goals I just wrote down quickly.
Okay. Landscape the yard.
Yard by August, complete a project at work on schedule, vacation
in
next
Florida,
fall in
Let's
Florida.
move that up a little bit.
And you notice,
Okay.
you notice that each one of these goals has it's very specific and it has a time element to it, so you know you can check off when the time comes, have you done that?
And this is personal, occupational, and family all
Kind of
together.
mixed them up here.
Okay,
Kind of
all
mixed
right.
them up. I just wrote down some goals. Okay, the next slide then will be prioritizing those goals.
All right.
And let's
Number
say
one.
that I do it, and I do it this way primarily. You notice I have on there read Romans this month, and I may say read Mother Teresa, a biography on Mother Teresa or something. This is for a secular audience, but I don't put them as a top goal, but I want to get it up there and get it relatively high.
Okay.
Now let's say as I just prioritize my goal here, I say, I want to complete that work project on schedule. And I want to...
Family reunion.
Yeah, I just work right down the goal. Then what I do is I take the top priority, completing that work project on schedule. I take a clean sheet of paper and write that down at the top, and I say, what am I going to need to do what are the activities I need in order to accomplish that? Well, I just wrote down 3 here. Get the needed equipment. Whatever there's some equipment I need, get that. Make sure that I have the support personnel that I need to help me with this. Make sure they're informed and they're committed to helping me with
Okay,
it.
good.
They're lined up. And then adjust my personal schedule so I can actually meet the deadline.
All right, yeah.
And then I go back to that list again of priorities. I pick out number 2.
Do the
and
same
it's going
thing
to be
again.
family reunion at Christmas. I take a clean sheet of paper again, go back to that clean sheet of paper, and I start writing down the things I need to do to achieve that. Plan details with my wife, gain consensus on meal plans. Are my wife and I going to
Right.
serve all the meals, or are different members of the family going to take responsibility for different meals?
The
Secure
sorbet or the
extra
souffle.
bedding.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Get the extra bedding I need and so forth. And just basically work it through that way. Then you have these, now you not only have goals, you don't only have priorities, but you have now some activities to accomplish those priorities written down.
Boy, it kind of overwhelms me to hear all that. But that's the nitty-gritty, isn't it?
You know, I'll tell you, the time you invest, that may take several hours, but the time you invest in that is going to save you enormous amounts of time later on, and it's going to help you actually accomplish the things that you have determined prayerfully are the most important to you, to your family, and to your occupation.
I want to ask another question before I do. I just share something. You know, sometimes I've done some of this, and I have a computer program that will take the things I haven't yet accomplished and put them on to the next day. That can get pretty discouraging after a couple days. But, you know, it does help me that I know I'm a little behind on that, and then I'll take a day and I'll have to knock out 10 things.
Yeah.
It's...
Right. And you know what? The next day you have complete freedom, because if you change your mind, you can do some other things on that day. Sometimes I don't even get to my schedule for that day. But let's move on here, because that'll...
Okay, so
we're getting to that.
Once I got my priorities set on those goals and done what you've said, these are the activities, what next? What do I do?
Okay, the fourth step, Don, is we then, when we're forming our to-do list for the day, we make sure that on that to-do list are some of those activities from our high priority items. In order to accomplish the high priority items, we had certain activities. We want to make sure that some of those activities are on our list, our to-do list, every single day.
Every day.
So it's at least on the list, and if possible, to make it as high priority on the list as we can, so we're contributing toward that. We're doing something toward accomplishing those. Now, I got to tell you, Don, at every step along the way here, people that start and write down some goals,
right,
then find it sometimes difficult to do prioritization, because it's not hard to put down number 1 and 2, but when you get down to number 8, 9, and 10 on the list, and people realize they may not be getting to those for some time if they're really working on 1 and 2,
full bore,
really focused on 1
Yeah.
and 2, it's discouraging because they think it's too important not to be working on those. And so some people bail out at that point.
They bail out because they're just overwhelmed.
Because it's a little, they want to treat everything equal, which means they're not going to accomplish near as much toward their high priority items, what really is deepest in their heart, by treating everything equal. You can't treat everything equal and get it all done. And how do you know when people ask you to do things, how do you know what to say yes to and what to say no to? When you have top priority goals that have been prayerfully established, that empowers you. It gives you permission to say no to things that don't contribute toward those, if they're really prayerfully set goals. Now, we're all going to have to make discernment during the day. Sometimes it'll be 5 o'clock in the day and I haven't even got to one of those high priority items on my list
Boy,
yet.
that sounds almost like every day for me.
Well, and you know what? The best time management experts in the world acknowledge that much of their time they don't have control over. The difference between those people and the people that don't accomplish the same thing as much as the experts do, is the experts keep coming back. They know. They have that built-in sense that if at 5 o'clock in the day, if they haven't even got to one of the items on their list yet, they still hopefully get to that. And if they get to the end of the day,
they just do as much as they can.
They carry it over. That's right. They carry it over to the next day. No guilt. They just carry it over to the next day because it's always on the list. And they're going to get to it. They're going to get to it and they're going to accomplish it. And when that gets crossed off, another item on accomplishing another one of those activities to accomplish their high priority goals gets moved over to that list. And it's just always there in front of them, and they just keep chipping away at it, sometimes only a few minutes, sometimes they don't even get to it, sometimes they have a block of several hours in a day where they can work on those things, and that's what it takes.
Just dogged determination, but understanding that God is also the God of the interruption as well.
That's exactly right.
Doing your best thing.
God, that's the Lord, I lay all my plans at your feet to be carried out or given up as your providence will indicate.
Well, that's
always have to be sensitive to that.
Now the next thing, I suppose, is just, like you said, do it. Getting it done. Go for it.
That's exactly right. And that's it's not easy for people to, because when they get up in the morning, there's people calling them, wanting them to do things. There's little urgencies that come up. But they have to have that, when they have those high priority activities on their list, what they want to do is to focus on those things. At some time during the day, they're going to chip away at those things. That's what they're trying to do. And look, Don, sometimes you get blocks of time. You're sitting in an airport, and now we're going to have, I understand, a little bit more time at the airports.
Okay.
Getting checked in and sitting there waiting for the plane and all those kinds of things. So what we do is
take advantage of that time.
Exactly. Take advantage.
Get a laptop.
Take advantage of those times.
Cell phone.
there are block times. You can block out times too. When you don't answer the phone, because you can always make callbacks and have the answering machine take calls and work on some of these things. There's all kinds of ways to do it, but you have to just keep after it.
Now I know that your answering machine does work and that you do screen calls. I know that. I've even been screened out occasionally. But yeah, I think that's a good principle. I got an answering machine, though, that truly picks up, and I don't know that it picks up because I don't like that feeling that people might get that, hey, he's listening and he has said, I'm not going to talk to that person. So I have this, I don't know if that ever came up with you, but it's true. The phone, when it rings, is not always a top priority. Okay, so the next thing after doing it, you have in your seminar, you talk about a story that I thought was really good about $25,000 system of management. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, this is a story of Charles Schwab, Don. He was the chairman of Bethlehem Steel. He owned Bethlehem Steel, and he hit a plateau in his business. Bethlehem Steel just wasn't going anywhere.
And this is a picture of him.
He didn't know what to do with it. Well, it's a picture we use in our seminar.
Okay.
It's a little graphic there.
All right.
But and so he called in a time management expert, Ivy Lee. And Ivy Lee followed him around for several days and then gave him a list of 6 things to do at the end of that period of time. And Charles Schwab looked at it, looked simple enough. He said, okay, what do I owe you? And Ivy Lee said, well, it was a list of 3 things to do. And he said, tell you what you do, you try these things for the next few months and then send me what you think it was worth. And at the end of that time, this was many years ago, when $25,000 was real money. And Ivy Lee got a check for $25,000.
Is that right?
For just...
Tell you what, $25,000 is not really real money. Now, I'd take $25,000 from you if you had it.
I understand.
So $25,000, he said that was so helpful.
For just doing those 3 things every day.
And so this individual helped him prioritize and get things going, and that was just worth all kinds of...
What that list of 3 things was.
Okay, what were they?
Number 1, before you go to bed at night, make a list of the 6 most important things you have to do the next day.
Okay. So before you go to bed, is that important?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. I do mine in the morning.
Okay.
Every morning.
All right.
And I do it during my prayer time. I actually formulate my to-do list during my prayer time. And I carry stuff over from the day before, and I make it a matter of prayer. But Ivy Lee suggested you do this before you go to bed. And then number 2, when you get up in the morning, you start working on number 1. And you work on it until it's done. You prioritize that list of 6 things.
Sounds
you
like
start working
something
on
my
number
wife
1.
has told me before.
Then you work on it until it's done.
All right.
And then when you're done with number 1, you start working on number 2.
Okay.
And work on it until it's done, and work your way through the list like that. All the way through the list that way. And do that every single day, he said, and it'll change your business. Well, Charles Schwab found it did. It did what it needed to do for him, and it was worth that much money to him. A very valuable thing for him. Now, I find, Don, that life doesn't work that way. I don't get started on number 1 and work on it until it's done. But there is, but I try every day to have my list of things to do, and I try to prioritize. The most important things on that list are at the top. Mm-hmm. And I want to try to get to that as fast as I can, get to that and start working down that list to get the most important things done. Mm-hmm. And you do that every single day. And I find that is the absolute key in this.
All right, so that's worth $25,000 to Charles Schwab, but to you and I as well, because we can get that done. You know, one of the things I was reading about one of these early religious communities in America that spawned so much of our current industry, and they did say that if you could make the list at night, their whole philosophy, I just read this recently, was that your mind could be thinking about it all night, even while you're asleep. And so when you get up, you're ready to do number 1.
Well, and I believe Stephen Covey also recommends that in his book, First Things First, an excellent book on time management as well.
Well, is there anything else? You know, we're talking about time management. We have only 1 minute left, so we've got to be careful with our time. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, Don, I think if there was one single phrase that a person kept in mind constantly, it would be remember that the main thing is the main thing, to keep the main thing.
Okay, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
There you go.
All right. Well, I think I can remember that. To keep the main thing the main thing. Obey the process in prayer. Ask God to guide you. But He has, remember that text? This is the way, walk ye in it. He can guide. He can let us know. We've been talking with Dr. Skip McCarty. We've been talking about how to cope with stress. We've been talking about time management as it relates to that. And I understand your seminar is available, Stress Beyond Coping.
Yes, it
We can
is.
get a hold of that.
Through the Health Connection, which is a subsidiary of the Review and Herald. They can call the 3ABN, I believe, and they'll have the phone number where they can get that seminar.
Okay.
And it's on videotape as well now.
So yeah, you can get a copy of today's presentation, what we've covered here today. It can help you in prioritizing time. I've got to tell you myself personally that over the last 10 years, many of these concepts have been put in place in my life. It's a result really of Dr. McCarty's material as we worked together before. And once you do these things, you'll get a sense that really your stress will diminish as you know where you're supposed to be, what you're to be doing. Of course there's interruptions, we know that, but keep the main thing the main thing. That's the main thing. We're glad you've joined us today. We're glad that you can, as a result, have health that lasts for a lifetime.